All right, it is 9 o'clock. We'll let people come on in here. But let's go ahead and get the show on the road here, guys. How we start this call is the same way we start every call, which is with wins. But before we get into that, I just want to remind you guys that we are going to have a open Q&A after the wins section where you're able to ask any questions that you have about the business, about a certain job that you are currently running, or maybe it's a customer is giving you trouble, or an employee, or maybe you're just wondering, hey guys, I'm struggling to do blank. Has anybody found a better way of doing it? You know, this is kind of like an open think tank, if you will, Q&A, where you're getting advice from not just coaches, but other clients. And so as we're kind of going through the wins here today, I would love for you guys to be thinking about what questions are kind of hot on your mind, what burning fires, so that we can really have a productive meeting and get you guys the answers you're looking for. I have a client I'm going to brag on here real quick. I don't think she's on the call, but I met with Premium House Cleaning yesterday, and I guess it's kind of two wins. One is she was able to fire somebody, and she already had somebody come ready to replace them with. So that's a hiring win right there. She wasn't held hostage by anybody and was able to get somebody else in here who's going to be a better fit. And she's still interviewing people. Which is a tip as well, you know, to be consistently looking. And then also, she is having her biggest revenue month up to date. So far, we've got a week left in May, and she's already 5K over her biggest revenue month ever. So, I want to celebrate her. And then I'd love to ask you guys what wins, what good news, what things are happening, small or large. We'd love to hear. If you'll just unmute and tell us what's been going on.
So I had a really great win. We've been waiting on a lot of money. Finally got a $250,000 check. I had to put a little pressure on them with my supply house to get it, but
okay.
Yeah.
Did you send in Tommy Tough Knuckles? Isn't that who Robert was recommending yesterday last week to collect?
We're probably getting close to that.
Yeah. Got him on speed dial if you need him. Yeah.
What? How did you guys both sync up with that? Wow.
Well, that's awesome, Fred. Congrats. I'm sure your cash flow is really appreciating that significantly. What other wins are we having here today?
Go ahead, Mark.
Mark, we can hear you. We can hear you now.
We had that storm blowing last week, and I finally had power restored yesterday. So we're back in business.
Oh my gosh, Mark. Where are you located?
Houston.
Okay. Oklahoma, we've been dealing with a lot of storms and wind and nothing. I mean, we did have a big tornado that took out a town not too far from us, but we had a storm back in June that we were out of power at the office. And I think Bryce and I are both out of power for over a week. And it's just brutal, especially this time of year where it's already in the 90s in Houston.
Yeah, we had basically a Cat 2 hurricane that just popped up.
Oh my gosh.
Tornadoes. I mean, we had over 100-mile-hour winds. Tornado hit downtown Houston, and basically crossed straight across my building, was hugging I-10 and just straight into downtown.
Well, Mark, we're glad you're safe. We're glad you're back in business. I'm sure you're feeling relieved. And hopefully you might get some work out of the situation too.
Storms are good for business.
They are. They are. We work with contractors, so typically. Anybody else? What wins are we having here this week? Going once. Any big Memorial Day plans? Are we just so ready for the weekend that we're just not even thinking about wins right now? People at the lake, toes in the sand.
Yeah.
Already there.
Okay, well, if you think of a win during this call, even if it's during the Q&A, please unmute, tell us what good is happening, put it in the chat. We want to celebrate it with you. I know that there's tons of other clients who need to hear it as well. So just don't be shy. We value these wins, and so does everybody else on this call. But let's go ahead and get into the Q&A. What burning fires are we dealing with? What questions are we having? What's kind of our biggest limiting factor right now? What advice are you looking for this morning? I just want you guys to unmute and tell us what's going on. I'm still seeing people jump in here.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
This is Leaf in Atlanta. My guys and I are starting like a sales, the sales process when my guys are out on jobs that they try and sell more electrical than the initial phone call was about, and just kind of starting out with that. I'm wondering if some of the other guys, Bryce has been really helpful, kind of getting my team going, but we're just kind of starting to do this, and wondering if other guys are a little bit further along in the process, and what are some of the things that have they seen? Has this been beneficial for them, and how's all that going?
It's a quiet group this morning, Leaf, but we'll get somebody talking, I'm sure.
So essentially, it's like your questions about cross-selling, upselling. What kind of is the experience with that?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we're really changing the way we had like an initial like service minimum of $225 to show up, and we're gonna change that to like $89 now, and our guys are gonna do a safety check on the house, and have a look around, see if the customer needs anything, write them an estimate on things that we see, and then write them an estimate on repairing the initial work that we were called out to do. So it's brand new for us. So I'm just it's a big change, and we're kind of excited about it, but we're also right at the beginning of it. So just kind of wondering how it's going to all turn out. So.
Yeah. Fernando, I saw your hand go up. Do you have feedback for Leaf here?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of give you my 2 cents.
Yes.
But we have an $89 diagnostic fee, and we go out there, diagnose it. Obviously, we do we look at the issue that they called us out for, but we always do or try to do 9 times out of 10 a 360 like evaluation, where we always ask, is there anything else you want us to look at while we're here? Any weird noises, any other issues that, and then they'll be like, oh yeah, I always have this issue with my water. Sometimes I lose pressure at my faucet upstairs, but they just gotten so used to it where they don't care. So then we just check it all out. And, for example, we got called out for a water heater, and they had galvanized piping, and I sold them the water heater. I had to head out to another one. My business partner, Anthony, came behind me, and he just continued to talk to her, continue to just ask questions, and then coming to find out there was no pressure in some pipes, and he ended up selling her a whole repipe. But it just comes from asking questions, and when it's $89, that just gets us in there. We even have a special for $29 that we might lose money, but in the long run, we've sold. It's a $29 drain clean, but we've sold either a sewer liner or a kitchen pipe, a repipe. So it's definitely worth it. Keep doing what you're doing.
Yes, Fernando, thank you so much for that feedback. And I love what Dale Eads just put into the chat, because this is typically a fear. Whenever we talk to clients about upselling, cross-selling, usually the first thing that I hear from a client is, well, we don't want to be like the other guys. We don't want to be like these big corporate organizations that are just selling people things they don't need, guys aren't comfortable with that. I'm not comfortable. And that's in no way what's happening. And that's what Fernando just explained too. It's not like Fernando's selling, having his guys sell things they don't need. They're taking a moment to say, hey, it is much cheaper for me as your electrician or plumber to take care of something while I am already here. And even if you decide to not take care of it while I'm here, now you at least know and you are prepared. Like you're doing your job, your due diligence. What Dale says here is we do not try to upsell customers. We take care of their needs and then perform an inspection checklist, point out any issues we find, and then leave it up to the customer to decide. That's called soft selling. There's a great book called Soft Selling in a Hard World that talks about this approach. Folks can sense a salesmanship and run from that feeling. And so it is so important that we really build that faith in our team. I'm not telling you to sell things that people don't need. I'm telling you that's your job as their electrician to communicate to them what benefits we provide, what other things we could take care of, and to let them know if there is anything else that is alarming. And I love the change that you're making, Leaf, with doing the smaller like service fee, diagnosis fee, trip fee, estimate fee, whatever you want to call it. It has many names, but that's a great opportunity to get your foot in the door, and then you're able to sell from there. I know we talked a little bit last week that it helps to get your foot in the door, and it helps weed out those tire kickers who would have never purchased anyways. And so, Leaf, any questions for Fernando or Dale here, who both commented?
I would just say, yeah, I mean, there are guys out there that are going to come in and just try and sell you anything, and they're trying to maximize profit and they don't care about anything else. And you want to sleep at night, and you want to do a good job for your customers and be fair. We want to be really careful about that and actually be giving customers things that they need and are gonna improve the value of their home, make it more safe. When they come to sell the house later on, these are things an inspector is going to look at, and we're catching them early. You've got kids here, smoke detectors. You need to have those upgraded, or there's none there at all. Things like that. So
Yes, things are benefiting the customer, things people need. So love it. What other questions are we having this morning?
I was going to add one thing as you guys think about that. One of the things that's really important that Fernando mentioned too is you don't win everything.
And that's
okay. You may, technically lose on a job, but by providing the fuller service, the more comprehensive work, like Dale was pointing out, you're really providing fully for their needs. Although you may lose some, you win on others, and you're winning overall because you're providing a better service, just period. Higher level of service.
Absolutely.
Cool.
What other questions do we have? You can raise a hand, you can unmute, fire away, put it in the chat if you don't have a mic.
Yeah. I think it's a good opportunity to, if there's questions, or even if there are things that were just kind of confusing, or even like a big insight that you gained, something that happened, in your own business this week, that's like, what, this is actually really valuable. I'm sad I had to learn it the hard way, or something like that. All of that is helpful.
So I'll go ahead with a question. We kind of ran into a season of where we as owners had to jump in and become technicians. And now trying to jump out of that mindset, what is everyone doing to kind of filter yourself out of the technician side back into the entrepreneur side? I guess motivation books, and just how to get ready for the day, and how are you functioning in the business that way?
Great question. What feedback do you guys have? What do you do to get your day going, to keep that mindset, to not be defeated? Is there any podcasts, books, what's worked for you?
If I could say something, me and Anthony, my business partner, we Hey, Kevin, we do all we're the entrepreneurs, we're the business people, we do it all right now. We have some other employees, but just with the amount of work. But I mean, honestly, for some motivation or podcasts, I listen to a lot of Andy Elliott, some David Goggins, just because I know sometimes it can get hard, right? Me and Anthony, we've there's been times where we've had to take pay cuts just to make sure that our guys are still taken care of on the field. Pretty, and then especially in the slow season, but we always remember why we're doing it. We always talk back and forth like, man, dude, like one day it's gonna be great. All this is gonna pay off. Sometimes I'll be down and Anthony will be like, no, bro, we just gotta keep swinging, gotta stay motivated. Wake up in the morning, go to the gym. We always have these conversations, right? It's kind of cringy or funny, but like we'll see trucks and boats and we'll be like, hey, bro, one day, right? I'll send him a picture, be like, one day that's gonna be us out there. Just things that keep us motivated, because sometimes we can forget about why we're in the business or why we're putting our life on the line, to build a business. So I think you got to really remember why you're doing it, and don't forget that. Do you want to see your family taken care of? Do you want to break that generational? I grew up poor, right? I want to break that generational curse and build wealth for my family and yeah, I mean, that's my little 2 cents.
I love that, Fernando. I think there's kind of two things I want to highlight from what you said. You have to pay attention to your big goal, your why. Why am I doing this? What is this going to do for me? What's this going to do for my family? What's the long-term effect that this is going to have, this work that I'm putting in? But also, we got to focus on the little wins too, because if you get so obsessive on the why of where I'm trying to go, can kind of feel like I'm never getting there. Like that seems really far away. Yes, I'm excited about it. I'm making progress toward it, but golly, that's far away. And so taking a moment and looking how far you've came. Where were you last year compared to this year? What is happening that's good this month compared to last month? What progress have I made this week? Having those process goals instead of just the big long-term goals is a really great way to continue to have motivation as you are on that roller coaster trying to get to that finish line, especially with the season you're in, Kevin, where you're in a stage of growth right now. You're wearing all of the hats and it's exciting and it's a good thing, but it's also scary and demanding, and there will come a season where it's not going to be as demanding on you, but right now you're in the thick. And so I really make sure that everybody here that we are setting weekly goals, monthly goals, annual goals, that we're paying attention to them, that we're celebrating the little wins. That's why we ask for wins every week, because you have to celebrate those. Being an entrepreneur is tough stuff. It's not for the faint of heart. And then Fernando, I really appreciate you recommending those podcasts too. If anybody has some podcasts that they like, if you want to drop them in the chat, or if you have a book that really changed your perspective or helped keep you going, would love for you to drop that in the chat, either the name or a link to it. That'd be awesome. Fred, I think I saw you raise your hand at some point. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I did. I was just going to say, I've been with Reverend Growth for a pretty long time now. And I do have like a checklist that I've been having it in a box for a long time. I was always nervous to try to implement it, but I think from the questions that I got that people asked today, I think I figured out a way where I could start implementing that checklist with me and a service guy. So maybe we'll get some more work out of it that way. So it's great to hear the question.
Yes, yes. And with those checklists, those home safety inspection checklists, it's something that if you're having to like get into the customer's attic or whatever, yes, ask permission before you're like crawling around in there. But we want to phrase it in a way of, hey, my name's Fred. I'm with, I'm happy to be here today. I'm with Cleaver Electric. One thing that we do as an added service to our customers is we run through this inspection to let you know what's going on in your home. It's completely free, only takes me about 10 minutes. and you'll at least know what's going on. If there's something else you want me to take care of today, we can. If not, you're at least prepared. You know, and it's kind of stuff we don't necessarily want to phrase it as optional. Something we do for every job. You know, it's something that was a benefit to them. It's not going to cost them anything. And then just say, okay, it's going to take me about 10 minutes, and then I'll let you know what's going on. And you go, you do it. Is always the best way to phrase it. I think I heard somebody on mute. I don't know if there's a question that we're missing.
Dale popped out in the chat as we were talking about that he would be lost without checklists, which is true. And Dale's been a guy that has done plumbing for probably longer than I've been alive. Just throwing a guess out there. But even then, yeah, the best people still need checklists. And that home safety inspection checklist is a great one to do. And for general contractors, remodelers, that's a similar thing you can do for yourself. If you have a short list of a few questions that help get into more things, like, hey, while I'm here, do you have any other projects that you've thought about working on at some point in the future, or is just kind of way out there? Most people only have a remodeler or a general contractor out every once in a while. You know, that's a great question to lead into stuff. Or, you know, hey, how much do you like to entertain? You know, have you thought about in this space doing X, Y, Z? So even having a short list of questions is its own form of a checklist like that. It's how you know how the business and your employees are doing, says Arnold. Dale. I always want to call him Arnold.
What other questions do we have here today, guys? I know I have a lot of clients complaining about closing ratios right now. I know I have clients complaining about inflation and having to adjust prices. I know I have clients who have been talking about how getting people financing and them seeing inflation and interest rates is a tough spot right now. You know, this hour, guys, is for you to come and say, this is what I'm struggling with. Help. It's kind of a lifeline. Clayton, yes, would love for you to unmute. Tell us what's happening.
So we are getting, well, I say we're getting issues. One of the things that we run into this week is we go through the vetting process of doing a new home construction. We get the contract signed, agreed to by the customer. The bank agrees to it. We send it through appraisal, and our appraisal comes in. The bank is requiring a 10% contingency on the job. And then the appraisal comes in $30,000 short of our of our contract with the contingency on it. My question is, how are you conveying that to the customer to ease their mind? This is worst case scenario in your contract if you go over the 10%. Our original bid is inside the contract price, but with the contingency, we're outside the contract price by 30 grand. How do you convey that to your customers and keep them in a reasonable frame of mind where they won't, they're not freaking out about, well, I'm going to be 30,000 over contract?
It's a great question. I saw some head nods from some contractors. And so if anybody has advice, I have a feeling some people have some thoughts and advice. Would love for you to unmute. Anybody?
I find with these kind of situations, it's just best to be honest with the customer. We are upfront and honest with everything we do and every procedure and everything that goes into the contract, so they 100% understand that that is worst case scenario. It might not help you out any, but it's helped us out a ton of just literally sitting down and spending hours with the customer explaining every little detail, especially when it comes to a big proposal like that, because chances are you're not dealing with, a $10,000 or $20,000 bid. These are hundreds of thousands of dollars that clients, a lot of things seem to get overlooked. So that's the route I've kind of taken, just to put the client's mind at ease and try and work out, payment plans if it goes over that, or, discuss options beforehand versus when something goes sideways.
I think that's huge, and I'll emphasize, I know Clayton, you put up your hand to kind of give some feedback on that, but expectation setting is probably the biggest thing that a business owner can do in any capacity, is setting expectations up front of what work will look like. Clayton, as the expert in this scenario, that a contingency fee is going to oftentimes be charged. Even if it's not every time, you can still make that communication before, so you're not looking surprised or anything like that, or like you weren't expecting something like that. You could say to every project before it starts, hey, oftentimes this is what happens. It may not happen in your case, but oftentimes it does. And that upfront expectation will resolve a little bit of that conflict, if not a lot. But go ahead, and I'll let you go. Say what you will.
So, just to answer I'm not tooting my own horn, but to answer some of the own questions is what we did was to fix the scenario that we've kind of run into on this situation is we've done, our customers all understand that there's going to be a contingency. If you do a cost plus, most banks are going to ask for 5 or 10%. We do all that stuff. The thing of it is we wasn't expecting the appraisal to come in $30,000 short. So what I did is I looked at the contract. I went with the customer and I told the customer, look, this is my appraisal. This is what I got. This is what they're not giving you credit for. This is what you're paying for, but you're not getting credit for. And I told him, I said, if we take that off, they're going to give you the same appraisal. You're just not going to have to pay for this stuff now. And what we took off was the storm shelter that he wanted was $5,000, was $4,000. We took that off. We upgraded his sheet metal, saved him $5,000 by changing it back to the original sheet metal and putting the higher price sheet metal on. We changed that. His window process, he had all these windows in it, and they were like $11,000. Well, I had quoted them both ways, but he wanted the higher priced ones. They weren't giving him credit for that, so we put it back to the lower priced windows. We wound up adjusting all this stuff on the contract very simply in one day, and he is now in the contract where he wants to be without doing anything. But I was just trying to get some other people's feedback if they've had this same issue coming up with other people, doing the same thing. Because that's one of the things we're running into. The price of material versus the appraisal price is completely different. And
Yeah.
I just wanted to know if you guys in other places are having to argue with your appraisal saying, hey, I can't build a house for $135 a square foot. How come you're giving me an appraisal for that?
Yeah, I'm seeing some head nods and smile, Clayton. It's not just your area. It's everywhere right now. Everybody's dealing with that. It's because of inflation. It's because of interest rates. Things have rapidly changed since 2020, and even this past year I feel like it's been even wilder than even it was in like 2020. And so I think things are just haven't caught up yet, haven't evened out yet, and so it's a little bit of a wild time. But you're doing everything right, Clayton. You're building confidence, you're setting expectations, the things that Kevin talked about. Those are the main things. That's all you can do with your customers, is really reassure and build that confidence. Josh, I see your hand up. Do you have feedback or a question?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes.
So we're residential remodelers, and up to this point, I've been using kind of a pretty standard. I don't know if it includes everything that we should have in it, like language on our estimates and proposals, and then also for our contracts and then our release. And I was wondering if anyone has any good resources for sort of a boilerplate template to build off of to make sure I'm, fully covered and, I'm including everything that's necessary.
Clayton, I was like, if Clayton doesn't comment on this, I'm gonna call him out, because I think you've learned this the hard way. I'd love to get your feedback, Clayton.
So Sarah is Nicole is really really good at that part of that. Her and I have worked really well. with some pretty rough customers to get our contract where it's at. And Nicole has a couple of our contracts that she's helped us build with the terms and conditions. I would tell you to look at that. Help you a lot. Save you a lot.
Yeah, we do have some working agreements, and Josh, I could send you a copy of Clayton's. One thing that we added to his, and that's the thing with working agreements, guys, is like you're a business owner, you get to set terms and conditions. Like you do. You can set those expectations, and as long as you go over it with the customer and you have them sign it, you've done your due diligence. And I'd really make sure that you do go over it. Don't just like send it to them and say you need to sign this, but sit down with them and go over it. So we are setting those expectations. Nobody's surprised. But I know with Clayton, things like change order policies, thing like a termination clause, meaning that if you decide you're done with working with me or I do, how do we part ways, make sure people get paid up? What do we do there? Callback policies with subs, how we're going to get paid. What is the draw schedule? If after I quote the job, if prices go up on materials drastically before we start the job, how do we handle that? Like all of those things are all in that contract, and we can go through that with you, Josh, and then we can say, what gap issues have you run into? Let's add some verbiage in here. Let's set those expectations, and then you and the customer both sign it. And then that's what you get to reference back to whenever any of those situations happen. It really covers your tail. We don't want to have to use it, but we'd rather have it than not.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. It's really helpful.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
I think Bryce just put one of our templates in the chat. I see a couple of you are on here. I'm gonna share my screen real quick and just walk you guys through. If you click on that template, you're going to go up to File and you're going to hit Make a Copy, and then you can name it whatever you want, but then that copy is entirely yours. You can change out the logo, you can change out the text, you can edit it however you want. We also use this one for service guides. If you're on like large projects, if you do like repipes or remodeling, there might be some stuff that's unnecessary in there that will delete out. But even if you're a service company that you are on projects for more than a couple of days or a week at a time, I would definitely have some type of agreement, either with the GC that you're working under or the customer.
And then Ryan, to your question, maybe you need a little clarification, or I need a little clarification. A template for the draw schedule that we talked about last week, that was one client's solution, and I don't know if you were included in the people that I sent the email to with the recording of the call. Were you?
I was, yeah, and I really liked that recording. Got a lot out of it, and then was sort of going, "That's a great idea. Is there paperwork that someone already came up with that I can just kind of copy and use for my business?"
Gotcha. I don't know if it's necessarily the paperwork, but the template that Nicole had said or showed a second ago, down at the bottom, there is a section of draw schedule and how that's laid out. So you can just edit that section to match whatever it was that was talked about in that call.
Yeah, and Ryan, it might be something that you can just add to your current contract or add to your current, estimate, whatever they sign to approve, like the scope of work, wherever you send them. You can just add that little blurb of like, hey, this is our payment arrangement. And one thing that I want to make clear, because I had a client who felt like he was like, Nicole, I'm doing the payment arrangement that's on the working agreement, but it's just not working for me. That's an example. Guys, it's not set in stone. The main principle around draw schedules and payment arrangements is you want to get on the front end whatever is going to cover what materials you're going to order, what you're going to pay for on the front end. We always want to make sure that the money comes before the work. So that should be your deposit. Whether that's 10%, 20%, 50%, it kind of depends on how long the job's going to be, how much you're ordering, all of that. You can figure that out. And then the payments throughout the job, you can break them down into 25, however you want to do it, 20. But the last payment that you get, this is very important, should be the smallest amount. If you could have it be under 10%, that would be ideal. This will help you not have collections issues. It's kind of, okay, after we do the final walkthrough, this is the last percent, that we're going to get, usually around 10, 8, 5, percent. You want to get most of the payment throughout the job. You could do 25, 25, 25, 25, whatever you want to do there. But just make sure the smallest is at the end and that you're collecting in the beginning. You're getting a deposit for enough that's going to cover whatever expenses you're going to have in the very beginning. Brandon, I saw your hand up, sir.
I just had one comment because I know a lot of people are struggling with cost of goods. Came to mind. I work a lot with I have a pro rep from the Backside Pro program for Home Depot. And if you go in and get hooked up with a rep, they will lock in a few of your most common SKUs pricing for a year. And so if you guys haven't explored that, they don't do it on everything. They won't do it on commodity-based products like lumber. But if there's common SKUs that you guys are using a lot, they're willing to lock pricing in for a year. And then if the pricing goes down, you can relock that new price for a year.
Brandon, I think that is great. And some people, I don't take advantage of it more. Is like if you have a vendor or a warehouse or supply shop that you are frequently using often, they a lot of times will offer you a discount or a deal for exclusively using them. They do usually have these types of things. And so take advantage of that. There's not a ton that you can do outside of pricing accurately to decrease your cost of goods sold. And this is one of the few ways that you can do it. And so love that advice, Brandon.
Brandon, this was in the chat, so I don't know if you're able to see it, but Ryan asked, is that with Home Depot Supply or HD Supply?
You have to go in and you have to become a managed account. So you have to get their Pro Extra account. And then I think you have to spend 30 grand a quarter or something to become a managed account there. But you can ask about it before you spend that volume. And if they look at what your upcoming business is, they'll assign you a rep to your account, and that's the person that could do it. They have access to a whole back end of warehouses that they don't advertise that keep stock specifically for contractors, all the way up through appliances and all kinds of stuff that they don't sell to anyone else. They're really ramping up going after the pro client.
Yes. And it's not just big warehouses. Like I know Home Depot and Lowe's are big dogs out there, but even small shops are sometimes even more incentivized to kind of lock you in and give you a discount. One thing that our CEO, and I actually think he got this from the good book, the Bible, but ask and you shall receive is a good principle to follow here. Like it doesn't hurt to ask your vendor, your warehouse, supply house. The worst they can say is, no, we don't have anything like that currently, but if we do, we'll let you know. This is great, guys. What other questions, feedback? Clayton, yes.
On the supply chain deal, I use a company. I mean, I don't know if you guys got McCoy's around y'all's place, but we use a vendor, McCoy's, here in Oklahoma. And one of the things that there's a couple of things that they do that's kind of unique to their business is they do in-room financing. Like say you build spec houses for a second part-time job. They do in-room financing, so you can go to them and they will finance your entire job through McCoy's Building Supply. That's one of the things that we've helped. The other thing is that they usually will not price match anything at Lowe's. And I don't know, you guys know about Lowe's, but I mean, down here, we got a 2-week waiting list for a delivery. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be a $50,000 delivery and it's 2 weeks waiting. So McCoy is the same day or next day you can get the same materials. And they're typically usually within 5% of whatever Lowe's is carrying, or they price match.
Yeah, price matching. That's a good thing to ask as well.
Yes. The other thing is if they do takeoff lists. So if you're doing large contracts, like you send them a set of plans, they will do a takeoff list for that set of plans, specific set of plans for specifically what you asked. If you come in and let's say you budgeted a job, and a lot of people don't ask this, but that asking you shall receive deal comes into play here. I just had one that we were about $1 a square foot off based on their takeoff list based on what I quoted them. Well, instead of me eating $1 a square foot to use them, they met me in the middle, and I only had to eat 50 cents a foot. And we still were able to, do the job with them, and they worked with us on it. They didn't just say, hey, no, we can't change our prices based on your square footage. So that's
Absolutely.
your vendor too, is, hey, we're a little bit off on our square footage, on our square footage price based on your takeoff. Can we fudge this a little bit? And most of the time, or in my case, they do.
Yeah. Again, doesn't hurt to ask.
Yeah. Well, a lot of our vendors would rather have you ask them and say, hey, can you work with this number? And a lot of them will say, yeah, we can work with this number, instead of saying, no, we're going to lose the work.
Right. Yeah, because that hurts them too.
Right.
What other questions,
it.
feedback have, guys? Before we all go and enjoy our Memorial Day weekend here in going once. Okay, are we all feeling pretty good today? All right. Well, guys, if you do have a question, or if you felt shy, or we didn't get around to, or you feel like you need more clarity, please reach out to your coach. Reach out to us, shoot an email. We will get back to you if you have something that comes up throughout the week. One thing I want to let people know is we will not have group coaching next Thursday. We have them the first 4 Thursdays of the month. Most months only have 4 Thursdays. This is where it has this. But don't feel like you can't get questions answered because we don't have group coaching. That's what your coaches are for, your account managers. And so reach out to us if you have a question, in between now and our next group coaching call. But let's go ahead and close out this call with a big 3, 2, 1 growth. So if I could get everybody to unmute that can. If you're on a roof, I get it. If you can't, but if we could unmute here. I'm seeing the unmutes happening. We're going to do a 3, 2, 1. Go! Bye, guys.
I love that Dale does that every time. It's beautiful.
I love it. He's part of the team.